Recently, we had the Institute for Women's Health annual meeting 2022, and we decided to have a debate. And I was speaking against this motion because this House believed that menopause is a hormone deficiency disorder. My opponent was Isaac Manyonda, and I can say at the beginning that it was in my favour at the beginning before the debate, but I lost the debate. It was pretty close, but I did lose the debate. On social media, some people were very shocked that this was even something we were discussing because they feel very strongly it's not a hormone deficiency disorder. But I think that the fact that I narrowly lost the debate shows that we do need to discuss this important topic. And the Institute meeting is a closed meeting, so people had asked me if I could record my talk so they could see what I said. So here we are. It's a real pleasure to give you this discussion today. Now, I am a professor of reproductive science. I've worked in the fertility and education of women's health and reproductive health for over 30 years. In 1987, when I started in this field, I started writing a book about women's health. I didn't finish it until last year, 2021. It was finally published. It's called Your Fertile Years. And I am co-founder of the UK Fertility Education Initiative, which we set up in 2016. And I'm founder of the International Fertility Education Initiative. And we really feel very strongly that we need to educate the public about all aspects of fertility and reproductive health. So my disclosures are that I go into companies under reproductive health at work, and we teach employers and line managers about all aspects of reproductive health. But I often am asked to give specific talks on the menopause, and I am paid to give those talks. Here's my book, Your Fertile Years. It has a chapter on the menopause, and I am partner in an online certificate in clinical embryology called the Embryology and PGD Academy, and I run a not-for-profit website called Global Women Connected. And I've worked and been paid by these companies to give talks or consultation over the last few years, and sometimes I have talked about the menopause. So I've been doing a lot of research around the menopause, and my real aim is to make sure that the public have the knowledge to make their own life choices around their reproductive health. So I've done many studies that aren't to do with the menopause, but obviously in today's talk, I'm just going to talk about the menopause studies. So our first survey that we did was for women over 40 to ask them their attitudes and knowledge to the menopause. The first paper from this has been published in Women's Health, and this was on the perimenopause group. And just today, actually, the postmenopause data has just been provisionally accepted in post-reproductive health. And then we have also submitted a paper that compares all the data from 3 groups of women: the perimenopause, the postmenopause, and those that felt they were neither peri or post. So that paper hopefully will also come out next year. Then we also wanted to know what women under 40 felt about the menopause. Interestingly, I had some young women say to me, "Why are you asking me this? I'm not perimenopausal." That was actually the whole point. I think menopause education needs to start at school, and it's been a real pleasure in the last few years to go into schools and talk about the menopause to teenagers, and they're very engaged with it. It's very important. They know people going through the menopause. They either their teachers, for sure some of their teachers, their mother, maybe their aunties. They absolutely know people going through the menopause, and it's important for them to understand this. So we have the first paper from this survey for women under 40. It should be out actually this week. I think the latest date they said was actually today. So that this paper should be out. All of my papers are open access, so they are free for anyone to read. And then we are working on another paper from this survey. And I will talk to you a bit about cold water swimming. I am a very obsessive cold water swimmer, but I am doing research around cold water swimming and pregnancy, the menstrual cycle, and the menopause. And it's a really hugely understudied area, even though the main group of women that swim are our menopausal, and it is very much a woman's sport. I run a group in Cambridgeshire called the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Blue Tits. We've got over 2,000 members, and I would say 98% are women. So we did a survey this year about cold water swimming and menstrual and menopause symptoms, because there was so much anecdotal evidence that women felt cold water swimming really helped them. So we are just analysing that data now, and it should be out very soon. And then we are very aware that all surveys, no matter what topic they're on, are normally filled in by a certain demographic. They're highly educated white people, and my surveys are no exception. So I was approached by a number of people from the Black community who said, can we do this survey aiming it for Black women? It's still live. The link is on my website, joyceharper.com. So it's really important to listen to the voices of Black women. And then we're going to repeat this in Asian women to find out their attitudes and knowledge of the menopause. And I want to start by thanking all these wonderful people who have been working with me on these projects. And without them, none of this work would have been possible. So let's talk about the debate. My arguments are going to be the menopause is big money. And if you are going to say that half of our population for maybe a third of their lives are going to take a drug, wow, that's big, big money. But I'm also going to talk about hormones and how powerful they are. I'm going to briefly talk about menopause symptoms and management, a very controversial area. What really is a menopause symptoms? And then where did all this start? Where did all this start about the menopause being a hormone deficiency disorder? And I'm going to talk about disease mongering, the negative narrative, and how I feel we need to educate everyone. And I really feel that women throughout our reproductive lives, through our whole lives, can thrive. We do have a few more complications than men. We do have menstrual cycles. We are the ones that carry the baby. We do have the menopause. So we're more complicated. And I don't want any of those stages to be a difficult stage for women. I want women to understand what these stages are, what can be done to help them thrive through them. And I think we can all do this. The British Medical Journal a few weeks ago published a paper on women's need for high quality independent information about the menopause. And I totally agree with this article. So the menopause is big, big money. Last year, it was estimated to be about $15.4 billion. We've got face creams, we've got lotions and potions. Of course, we've got Gwyneth Paltrow, we've got menopause tea, menopause lubricants, and we've got from sitting on a £400 an hour electromagnetic chair to vampire facials for your vagina, all the alternative menopause treatments, and why critics say they probably don't work. And here, a bit of the elephant in the room, we have hormone replacement therapy. If we are saying that women have a hormone deficiency disorder, then you are saying that women, all women, need to replace those hormones. And the hormones in our menopause that are important are estrogen and progesterone, and that is what HRT is made up of. It's a little bit more complicated if you don't have a womb. I won't go into the ins and outs of HRT. I just want to give you an overview of why I don't think the menopause is a hormone deficiency disorder, and why I don't believe that every woman needs to take HRT for the rest of their life. So hormones are very, very powerful things that rage around our body, our reproductive hormones. For a woman, they will kick in puberty. And I'm sure we all know how a turbulent time puberty can be for anybody. And the menopause, I always I always quote as being the reverse of puberty. In puberty, our hormones are roller coastering up, and in the menopause, they're roller coastering down. So if you look at the symptoms or suggested symptoms of the puberty and the menopause, some of them are very similar. And another reason why we should teach this in schools, if we've got a house where the teenagers is going through puberty and the mother's going through the menopause, it's a very, very hormonal house. So I think it's important for everybody to give each other some slack and to understand what each other are going through and give each other support. So as I said, I'm a cold water swimmer. This is us on New Year's Day. All these women in the rage of the menstrual cycle. I'm in the middle here somewhere. I was buried under this big wave. And I think this is what our menstrual cycle is like. Our menstrual cycle from puberty to the menopause is a rage of hormones. So we mainly, but lots of women have premenstrual syndrome or tension, PMS or PMT, and that may last for about a week before we have our period. Then we have to deal with a period, which may last again for about a week. Our menstrual cycle is about 4 weeks. So we've got a third to a half of our menstrual cycle where these hormones are not in our favor. They are at a stage, because they're oscillating every day of our cycle, they're at a stage where they affect us negatively, mentally and physically. We are very aware now for elite female athletes that we have to work with their menstrual cycle. I've seen reports that said, oh, there's even been women who have won gold medals when they've had their period, like shock. You know, we're not at our peak performance, as I said, mentally or physically, when we're around this time of our period. So that's a lot to deal with. I didn't have a very positive time with my menstrual cycle. Actually, when I got to the menopause, post-menopause, I apologized to two of my long-term partners and said, I'm really sorry. I think when I had a menstrual cycle, I was a bit crazy. Probably not crazy all the month, but crazy for about a third to a half of the month. So I think the menopause is this picture here. This is me here with some friends at Sunrise in Frinton on the Essex coast. And this is how I feel post-menopause. I feel calm, totally calm, like a cloud lifted from my head. Every day I wake up and I know how I'm going to feel. I'm not going to feel this turbulence of these reproductive hormones. I just feel relaxed. So I am a scientist, and we should never talk about an N of 1, but I do want you to know where I'm coming from on this. I've never taken HRT. I'm about 15 years post-menopause. And so I feel very, very strongly I'm not alone. I'm not an N of 1. There are many other women that feel that post-menopause, being free from these hormones, is liberation. And I absolutely love the Tenor Lady advert. Their line is, I will be me. And they've got this great video about the menopause and a woman being really hot and she puts her head in the fridge, and one woman slightly wheezes herself. And then they say about the menopause, the perimenopause, then it ends and you are more yourself than you ever were. And I think, sorry, I have got a bit of a cold today. Got a bit of a husky voice. So I think that when I saw that, I just jumped up and down. I was like, yes, that's how we feel. Many women I know, and I'm doing a lot of research on this at the moment. We're just about to do some focus groups in 2023 of post-menopause women to ask them how they're feeling. I want to hear how other people are feeling. And then my next book is going to be something like Happiness Over 50. I really believe this can be a liberating, free time of a woman's lives. She's ticked so many of the boxes she wants to achieve through her life. Her hormones have stopped, and we can celebrate that. Now, I must stress, I am a fan of HRT for those that need it. And I think this freedom that we see, I've heard women say this that have been on HRT, and women say it who haven't been on HRT. And it just shows that we are individuals. We are not one size fits all. And I don't think that we should have this claim that this is going to be a cure for everybody. And I think we should make up our own minds how we want to live our post-menopause life. But there are many options for women. And so HRT or not, you can absolutely feel free and liberated. So the short and long-term menopause symptoms. I'm a scientist. I need evidence. I need to practice evidence-based medicine. I've done a lot of work in the fertility arena and the infertility arena, especially around things like IVF add-on treatments that I feel are being sold to couples going through fertility treatments with no evidence that they work. And then here we are in the menopause, where I think we have exactly the same issues with treatments being sold to women, where there's no evidence that they are really doing everything they say they should do. So this list of menopause symptoms is controversial. Some people will say they're just aging. I have in the past added gained weight on this list of short-term symptoms, but men gain weight as well at this time in their lives. And we all have to be more careful. So I think we have to be really think about what we are aware of what are menopause symptoms. We will absolutely get menstruation changes. Our menopause means that you've gone for 1 year without having a period. That means you've done the menopause, you are then post-menopause. Before that, the time before you have your last period is the perimenopause. And the perimenopause is normally associated with symptoms. So yes, menstruation changes for sure. And periods can get very heavy. They can get very a short space in between them, many issues around them. We're also doing research starting very soon in 2023 with postmenopause women to ask them, perimenopause women to ask them about their menstrual changes and their periods. So we're doing surveys on postmenopause women to ask them how they feel, and focus groups on perimenopause women to ask them about their periods. Vasomotor symptoms are the hot flushes and the night sweats. They are absolutely a menopause symptom. There are genitourinary symptoms that can happen, such as some incontinence, etc. And there could be changes to the vulva and vagina and vaginal dryness, which can lead to sexual difficulties. The whole area around mood, adversity and psychological symptoms is very controversial. Some people say they are not hormonal. Some people say they are. But I'll come back to that in a moment when I show you the results from our survey. And joint and muscle pain for sure. And then osteoporosis is brittle bones, cardiovascular disease, urinary incontinence, pelvic organ prolapse. Some feel it's just an aging thing. It's not a menopause thing. And Alzheimer's and dementia. I've just finished reading the XX brain, all about the female brain, Lisa Mosconi's book. And women and men experience dementia and Alzheimer's slightly differently. It's much more likely that women get dementia. We blame the menopause and say it's only because of the menopause, but it's actually much more complicated than that. And there is definitely a narrative that HRT will prevent this. And unfortunately, there is no evidence that HRT prevents Alzheimer's and dementia. Some studies show it makes it worse. Some show it makes it less. So we need to look at all of the evidence and all of the studies and not just pick one study that is showing that it works and run with that. So, and I'm going to come back to that. So I've done some posts on Global Women about the menopause symptoms. I've done a video on YouTube, so you can find out more about my views there. So this is one of the questions we asked on our survey. We asked this for all of the women over 40. This is just the perimenopause. The postmenopause, as I said, is coming out soon. We asked them, don't worry about the graph. We gave them a list of 52 potential symptoms. We absolutely appreciate that not all of those by any means have been shown to be menopausal symptoms, but we wanted to ask them what they felt could be a menopause symptoms. And the most common were actually psychological symptoms that can lead to a drop in performance and motivation at work. So irritability, poor concentration, poor memory, brain fog, low mood, mood swings, lack of motivation, reduced confidence, anxiety, fatigue, problem sleeping. And then we get the hot flushes and night sweats and weight gain. So we absolutely need more research. And in the debate, Isaac said the same. We need more research to understand what isn't a menopause symptom and then understand how we can treat them. So I have to stress, we are all individual. And unfortunately, we don't want to hear everyone's stories. We seem to be thriving off the stories that are doom and gloom and that of women that have had a very negative experience. But 20 to 25% of women have no symptoms that cause them anything. Obviously, their periods are going to change, but they haven't had symptoms that are causing them any issues. Only about a quarter have severe symptoms. The rest have symptoms, but they feel they can manage them. So only about a quarter have severe symptoms, and these can last for months, years, or more. So those women absolutely, well, all women who are having any symptoms that are affecting their well-being, they absolutely need to get medical advice, and they should not suffer. One of my main messages when I go into schools and companies everywhere, I say women should not be suffering. They should not be suffering if you're a teenager having period problems, or if you're a perimenopausal woman having menopause symptoms. We should get advice and treatment that will help us get through these periods of our life. The NICE guidelines say we need to adopt an individualized approach at all stages of diagnosis, investigation, and management of menopause. And I totally agree with that. We are individual. It's not one size fits all. We have to treat women as individuals. So I'm sure you're aware of Davina Hall has produced 2 documentaries, and I applaud her for getting the conversation around the menopause going. But the documentaries do show the negative stories. It's a lot about how terrible the menopause can be. And when we do have women talk about the fact that they have no symptoms, they have been really criticized. There was an article in the Daily Mail recently, and I had a quote in that article, and it was really slammed because someone just told their very positive perimenopause story, and women said, well, we don't want to hear this. I think we absolutely need to hear it. And I think it's not fair to the younger generation of women to only hear the negative narrative, because this is not the true representation. And we have scared younger women. Younger women are very nervous and anxious about going through the menopause. And I really, really don't think that's fair. So we need to balance this. We need to hear that there's women have no symptoms, don't need anything. Some have symptoms, need treatment. Some have really severe symptoms, really, really need treatment. And HRT is absolutely a life changer for women with severe symptoms. It's a no-brainer, absolutely needed. But my argument is it's not needed for everybody. So management, if a woman is experiencing menopause symptoms, then the first advice normally is for her to look after her well-being. And I always talk about the 4 pillars of well-being. And again, I talk about this in schools. It's important for menstrual health. It's important for preconception health. It's important for pregnancy health. And it's important for menopause health. So everyone, men and women, need to be aware of our pillars of well-being. And I really feel that for many people, this will really help. But I have tried to discuss this information with women in many, many events over the last 10 years. And unfortunately, some people don't want to be told this information. And we're doing a lot of work in our international fertility education of how we present messages and education to people that are resilient to that, and not resilient, resistant. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold today, so I'm not quite always picking the right words. Resistant to this. We need to give them resilience. So nutrition, really important, not Friday night takeaways. Thinking about our nutrition is so important. I'm following Tim Spector and the Zoe Project. Please visit their website and listen to Tim talk about how we've got to do this. He's saying this is not just for the menopause, this is for everybody. We all need to think about that. And our exercise, this is one of my swimming groups photos. We have hundreds of these. Exercise, again, I've given whole talks about exercise. I've written a lot about exercise. There's a lot about it in my book. Sorry. Exercise and our nutrition and our sleep can really reduce many, many diseases. They reduce cancer, they reduce diabetes, they reduce the risk of heart disease, Alzheimer's and dementia. It was very clear in Lisa's book that all of these factors are really, really key. Tim Spector will say the same about our nutrition, but also exercise and our sleep. These are so, so important. And for our reproductive health, they are really important. And some of us have discussed before that we look on the menopause as a welcome wake-up call to women to say, right, now is the time. But I know many women who don't exercise at all and they don't want to start. But exercise can be fun. It could be dancing. It can be going for walks with friends. It could be netball. There's even walking netball now. And you might not have been the top athlete at your school. You can still enjoy exercise, and there's so many things you can do online. It's cold water swimming. We have so many women come and join us. They're not the sporty types. They come and join us, they get in the water and they feel fabulous. And we're going to be doing a study next year about menopause and cold water swimming. And sleep is really important. We blame the menopause for everything. We blame the menopause for poor sleep, but men have poor sleep too. There's lots we can do. Again, I've given talks, I've talked a lot more about sleep. I won't go into it now. But there's certainly the importance of sleep. It cannot be underestimated. And all of these feed into our mental health. All of these can affect our mental health adversely. And if we look after them, they can really help. So trying to make sure we've got ourselves in a good position is really important. So HRT, yes, it will help some menopause symptoms. With any drug, there are side effects. The data, the evidence is showing that it's really effective for hot flushes, but only about 70% of women with hot flushes are helped by HRT. So people think it will solve everything. It'll make them young and youthful and improve their sex lives, etc. And there's very, very little evidence on that. So we do need more research to look into using HRT. Breast cancer, HRT is not recommended for those who've had breast cancer. There's the whole debate of whether HRT creates breast cancer. Isaac, in his debate, showed the very powerful slide that shows that if you've got normal weight and if you don't drink and you exercise, you will have a really positive effect on reducing your risk of breast cancer. He showed the effects of HRT, which only very slightly increases your risk of breast cancer. So we have to take those things into consideration. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, has been shown to help. There's other drugs that can be used, and there's a whole area around alternative and complementary therapies. But the studies are showing us that women in the workplace are really suffering with how to deal with their job and their menopause symptoms. And I think what we need to do is ensure we have a menopause-friendly workplace to help women with the symptoms, to cope with those symptoms, which will then hopefully reduce the negative effects of the menopause on those women. And there was some data recently of millions of women leaving the workplace because of menopause symptoms. This was something that was extrapolated from some very small data. And I think if you read carefully now, there's a number of posts on social media, some by Rachel, who runs a Magnificent Midlife, that will show you that data was incorrectly reported. So let's look at where this all started about the menopause being a female hormone deficiency. Well, it actually started in 1966 with a book called Feminine Forever by Robert A. Wilson. And it says that menopause was a serious, painful and crippling estrogen deficiency disease that should be treated with estrogen replacement therapy to prevent the otherwise inevitable living decay. I really don't feel like I'm decaying. So the solution would be HRT. And more recently, Louise Newson, very prominent menopause doctor, has these in these purple boxes are from her website, rebranding the menopause as a female hormone deficiency. On her website, she also has an article about how HRT will help protect against Alzheimer's and dementia, which many of us in this field do not agree with. There is, in my view, I've looked at the evidence, there is no evidence that HRT will protect. If there was, I tell you, I would be on it. I have Alzheimer's in my family, my mother had Alzheimer's, I would definitely be on it. And then on Louise's website, it also says women with a family history of breast cancer, including those women with the BRCA gene, can still usually take HRT safely. This is Liz Royden, who is a breast cancer surgeon and also a breast cancer sufferer. And she would definitely not agree with this statement. She has been doing a lot of posts around not agreeing that women with breast cancer should take HRT. So I call this disease mongering. From this paper here, it says we are widening the boundaries of treatable illness in order to expand markets for those who sell and deliver treatments. Promotion of anxiety about future ill health in healthy individuals, and promotion of aggressive drug treatment of milder symptoms and disease. And I absolutely agree with those statements. So those are saying that healthy individuals should take HRT even if there are no symptoms. And what we are seeing now is we are seeing women that have been postmenopause for many years, have no symptoms, coming and asking for HRT because they think it will help prevent diseases in the future. Those perimenopause women, again, with no symptoms, asking for HRT, even younger women who are thinking, oh, I better be on this now. So they've already got estrogen and progesterone in their bodies at, high levels, and they're asking for more. So I firmly believe that this is the wrong narrative. I do not think that all women need HRT forever. I think it should be a choice. Some women will, some women don't. And when we were discussing this debate on social media, someone said, without HRT, women are surviving, not thriving. And I totally disagree with that comment. I really feel that women can thrive post-menopause, whether they take HRT or not. And I am definitely thriving. And many of my colleagues are. So I did an Instagram live a few months ago called Why I Don't Believe All Women Need HRT. It's had almost 2,000 views. You can go and see it there and see what you think. So I think marketing HRT preventative medicine is misleading, and I am not alone. The US Preventative Services Task Force have done a couple of articles before about this, and their most recent one this year said that they recommend against the use of combined estrogen and progesterone for the primary prevention of chronic conditions in postmenopause persons. I think that is very clear. The British Menopause Society has said the decision whether to take HRT, the dose of HRT used, and the duration of its use should be made on an individual basis. So I wanted to finish by talking about this negative narrative that we have created around HRT. When I give talks, I use an interactive platform called Mentimeter. So I asked the audience various questions. And this year I did a UK talk called Sex in 3 Cities, where I talked about reproductive health and I talked about the menopause. And I asked the audiences to tell me, what words would you use to describe the menopause? And this is what they said. As with any word cloud, the larger the word, the more people put this in. And the game is always to see, can we find a positive word? And there are a couple. There's, where are they now? Liberating, and somewhere it's freeing. I think there is another one here or there. But this just shows this negative narrative. And it's not just specific to the UK, but the UK, we have made it much worse. So in other countries, they often look at the menopause as a very enlightened time. They celebrate the wise postmenopause women. They become really important people in many communities. But in the UK, we've created this real negativity around the menopause. So I call postmenopause freedom. Freedom from our menstrual cycle, our periods, our premenstrual syndrome, from contraception, and from these powerful hormones. No more periods. Wow, that is definitely a celebration. And in our surveys, we asked women how they felt about not having any periods anymore, and well over 90% were very happy that they would not be having a period. So I've done a lot of podcasts over the years, and I'm really pleased to announce that in 2023, I'm going to have my own podcast. At the moment, the title is going to be Why Didn't Anyone Tell Me This? I might change it, but that's my favorite at the moment. So the first one will be coming out in January. Back in 2019, some of you may remember, BBC Breakfast did a week long about the menopause. They asked me to collect through, I'm wearing the same dress. They asked me to collect some women who felt very positively about the menopause to do a session with them. And this is us here in a wonderful butterfly house because of the change in the butterfly, the change in us. And all these wonderful people talked very positively. For International Women's Day this year, we did a menopause party. The great comedian here, Debbie, she does a great sketch about menopause called The Menopause Party. Please follow her on social media. And then there's many of us for many years who have felt that we have the wrong narrative around the menopause in the UK. We have banded together. We've had many, many discussions over the last 5-6 years. We've now banded together. We have called ourselves Meno Clarity. We're just going to be starting off on social media, but we're here to dispel the myths around the menopause. So I just want to share a few of my data from my surveys. I think knowledge is power, and I want to make sure that everyone is educated around all aspects of reproductive health, including the menopause. And as I've said, we need to think about the message we are sending to young women. So this is a bit of the results from our surveys. This is the under 40s that's coming out now. And this is the over 40s that's hopefully in press soon. How informed did you feel about the menopause before the age of 40? The under 40s, both groups, the over 40s and the under 40s, mainly said not informed at all or some knowledge. This needs to change. We need to make sure all women feel very informed about the menopause. So we need to go from under 10%, under 5% here to 100%. Everyone, not just women, everyone should be very informed about the menopause. It's not rocket science. It's not complicated. There's some key messages that we need to get across. How were you taught about the menopause at school? Obviously, not at all. Sorry, most of them not at all. A few of the younger ones have had some basic education, which is great, but not the older women. So we need to make sure all of this turns to very detailed. I want to see very detailed for 100% in the future. So we're great in the UK that the Department for Education a few years ago has said we now have to teach about reproductive health and the menopause in schools. So I've been doing a lot of this, been very well received. And we have now created, the International Fertility Education Initiative has created a PowerPoint presentation and guide for teachers to help them deliver all reproductive health, but there are slides and guidance there about menopause. So I want to give this to teachers for free so that they can learn about these key topics and so that they can then teach them. I can't go into every school in the UK every year to teach this. So they will now have the tools to teach them. So in conclusion, this is me recently. I love going dancing. I really strongly believe that menopause is not a hormone deficiency disorder. I think we need to give women and everyone the knowledge so they can thrive. HRT is absolutely an option that works to treat some symptoms, but we are not one size fits all, and we should not be giving women incorrect information about the menopause or about HRT and what it can do for them. So I love this article. Please read this article, Normalizing Menopause, by Martha and others. Excellent article. So this is my contact. I'd love to hear what you think about this. On Twitter and Instagram, I'm at Prof. Joyce Harper, or you can find me on LinkedIn, also on TikTok and YouTube. My website is joyceharper.com. I'd really love to hear what you think about this presentation and what I've said today. And remember, I lost the debate. Thank you very much.